I remember the day like it was yesterday on planet Koru. It was just like any other day on our peaceful planet. The sky was bright orange, with blooming plants along the turquoise riverbank, and sunlight bouncing off the surrounding cliffsides around the family's cozy little home. My best friend Labe and I were just outside my house playing a game of tag. He's been my best friend for as long as I can remember. Labe was the tagger, chasing me all around the cliffsides that surrounded my house. All of the sudden, I found myself concerned. I found myself cornered into a steep cliffside with Labe closing in a full sprint. This is bad. This is very, very bad. What am I going to do? I thought to myself. With my back against the sharp rocks of the cliffside, I braced myself for every kid's worst nightmare. Being tagged. I stuck my arm out just as Labe was about to tag me, and a huge rush of energy flowed out of it. Ow, Kay! That hurts, you know! Exclaimed Labe. I'm sorry, Labe. Are you okay? I asked anxiously. Labe began to slowly get up. Yeah, I'm okay, I guess. Why is it that you can do that and I can't? Hey, you're already super fast. I don't even have control of it. My parents say that I'm different than everybody else on Koru. They remind me every day of how special I am and how I'm going to do great things one day. Well, of course you're different, Kay. You don't look like your parents at all, let alone anyone else on Koru. I always stuck out from the rest of the people on our planet. Everyone had light red skin, 4 eyes, and super speed. I was almost as tall as my parents, had blue and gray skin, 2 giant horns coming out each side of my head, no super speed, and worst of all, I had an eye bar. Not even eyeballs. I could see everything just as everyone else could. It's just different, that's all. Sometimes, I don't even know who I am. I hate being different, Labe. I always stick out. Some of the adults give me weird looks. All the kids at school don't want me around them because they think I'm weird. And yeah, I know I'm different from my parents, I told Labe. Being different is always bad, Kay. My uncle is missing 2 of his 4 eyes, and he's doing just fine. I giggled a little. Yeah, but it's not the same, you know. Yeah, I guess you're right. There was a brief moment of silence. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we go back to your house and ask your parents? Labe asked. I don't know, Labe. What if they just say, okay, you are just so special in so many ways, I said mockingly. Hey, you didn't have to be so rude about it. It wouldn't hurt to try, you know. Okay, fine, and you don't have to yell at me. We'll go ask my parents, I replied. Yes! Labe wins again, yelled Labe. Just as Labe was about to sprint off back to my house, I stopped him. Labe, wait up! I have to tell you something, I screamed to him. Yeah? What is it? I stuck my hand out for a fist bump. Thanks for being my best friend. Labe extended his hand out and bumped my fist. You'll forever be my best friend, Kay. And my eternal rival in tag. Oh, by the way, you're it, yelled Labe as he took off towards my house. Hey, that's no fair, Labe. You can't do that, I screamed back at him. We quickly made our way back to my house, traversing the cliffsides. Labe made it back before me. I approached the front door as exhausted as ever and immediately fell on the floor, gasping for air. I don't think I have ever run faster than that in my life. As I sat up from the floor, I saw that Labe was standing over me. So, what, I'm 2-0 on the day now? Asked Labe in a cocky tone. You cheated, I screamed at him. I took a deep breath, regained my composure, and called for my parents. Mom! Dad! I'm home! I yelled in the house. There was no response. They're not home, said Labe. Are you sure, Labe? No, Kay. I was only here 10 minutes before you looking for them, snarked Labe. I chose to ignore his comment this time. Maybe they're just running late from work, that's all, I told Labe. My parents were guardians of planet Koru. They are responsible for protecting the planet at all costs, along with its leaders. Every day, they risk their lives for people like me and Labe. They even sometimes go off the planet to help others in need. So what are we going to do now? Asked Labe. Well, I guess the only thing we can do is wait until they get home. Labe and I decided to wait for my parents to get home from work. There was nothing to do at my house. Seconds became minutes and minutes became hours. I had no idea where my parents were. They were never out on the job for that long. As dusk was approaching, Labe and I noticed a strange darkness on the horizon. We have never seen anything like that on our planet. Soon after we took notice of this darkness, we heard a lot of big booms in the distance. We suddenly noticed that the booms began to sound closer. With each boom came a huge blue flash. Soon enough, they began to violently shake my house. Pictures and decorations began to fall off the shelves and walls. Labe and I found ourselves rushing under my dinner table for cover. As the booms drew closer, my house suddenly began to crumble. Parts of the roof began to fall from the ceiling, and the floor started to cave in. I looked over at Labe with fear and anxiety, my heart racing faster than any time we played tag. What do we do, Labe? I asked warningly. We need to get out of here or else we'll die, exclaimed Labe. As more of my house began to collapse in on itself, Labe and I rushed outside to where we thought it was safe. Just as I was leaving, I turned around and took one last look at it. I remember seeing a picture of my family and it falling off the wall, breaking into little pieces. We successfully made it out of the house, and I let out a sigh of relief. That sense of release lasted no longer than a minute. A nearby explosion created a massive rumble on our planet, knocking us down to the ground, and along with it came a huge crashing sound from behind us. Both Labe and I turned around to see what the sudden crash was. I fell to my knees in shock and horror. Kay, your house. It's gone, said Labe. I was speechless. No words could describe the pain and distraught I was feeling at that moment. My heart sank and tears began streaming down the tip of my face. My home had been taken under by our planet. All that was there now was a giant, deep crevice where my house once stood. All my memories are now gone. A few more explosions happened nearby, causing Labe to jump up in a hurry. Kay, we need to get out of here and find somewhere safe, said Labe. We can't, Labe. What if my parents come back and don't know where we are? I asked. I'm sure they'll find us. They're guardians of our planet. Right now, we need to go somewhere safe. As Labe was explaining all of this to me, we noticed large cracks starting to form from the crevice. Let's go now, screamed Labe. We took off in a hurry into the forest, and soon after we left, the planet's surface crumbled. Bobbing and weaving through the trees, Labe and I ran through the forest, looking for the best spot to stay put until my parents could find us. We felt a sense of unease as the sounds of explosion and the crumbling of our planet drew closer. I tried my very best to keep up with Labe as he was just within my sight. I knew he was holding back so I wouldn't lose track of him. All of a sudden, I saw him come to a halt. It was a dead end. A cliff dropping so far down that would lead to our inevitable doom. As I approached Labe, he turned around with tears running down his face. It was a look of sadness and defeat. I had never once seen Labe cry until now. I don't know what to do, Kay, Labe said as he fell to his knees. I sat down and hugged him. I had given up. Whatever hope I had left at this point was gone. My home was destroyed. My planet is collapsing in on itself. Worst of all, I don't know where my parents are at. There was nowhere to run. This was going to be it for Labe and me. We huddled on the ground together and prepared for the worst to happen. Suddenly, a giant beam shined down from the sky right next to us. A massive Herculean figure floated down from the beam of light and extended its hand out. It was tall, bald, had pale skin, pure black eyes with no pupils, and was wearing black and gold armor for an attire. I was probably as tall as the midsection of its torso.
Hurry and grab on. It'll be your only chance to live,
It yelled in its deep, heroic voice. Labe latched onto its arm with no hesitation. I couldn't do the same. I kept second-guessing myself. I can't go. I just can't. I don't know who this is or where it came from. What if my parents see me go off with some stranger? I thought to myself. Hurry and grab on, Kay. It's do or die.
Listen, kid, if you don't grab on right now, you are going to die,
yelled the stranger. Hearing the word die set me straight, and I decided to go. I sprinted towards them and jumped onto the stranger's arm. Just as I clung to him, the cliff collapsed into the nothingness of the planet's abyss. We flew up into what looked like a ship. I've never seen anything like it before. Everything in it seemed so foreign to what I'm used to.
Sit down and hold on to something,
yelled the stranger. Labe and I rushed to an open seat, pulled down on what appeared to be straps, and held onto nearby handles. We felt a sudden force pushing us back into our seats as we accelerated into outer space. After about 10 seconds, all that force was gone, and I felt somewhat relieved. I looked over at Labe to see if he was okay, but there was a look of horror on his face. What Labe was seeing was planet Koru imploding through a window on the ship. We unstrapped ourselves from the seats and rushed towards the window, with no regard for anything else now. No! Labe screeched. Mom. Dad, I uttered. We began crying hysterically. A wave of uncontrollable emotions came over us. What was once a peaceful day turned into a tragedy. We lost our home and our family, even though we didn't want to believe it. As we were grieving, the stranger got up out of his seat, walked over and hugged us.
I know how it feels to lose loved ones and your home planet. I know that pain all too well. I'm sorry for both of you, but at least you're safe with me now.
Who are you? I hysterically asked.
My name is Jabu, and I am the reason you both survived the devastation of planet Koru.
Where are we going? I asked.
You two are going back to the mothership with me. You'll be staying with me and my crew. I'm sure you both have a lot of questions, but let's hold off asking them until we get there.
Both Labe and I looked at each other nervously. We just met the stranger today and had no clue what to do. We've never been off the planet before. What if our parents did manage to escape and come looking for us?
Don't be so scared, you two. You can trust me. Let's not forget that I did save your lives just a bit ago, Jabu said kindly. Just relax and have a seat. We'll be at the mothership shortly.
As Jabu went back to pilot the ship, Labe and I looked at each other to affirm that we could trust this guy. Maybe it was his voice, the way that he comforted us, or that he just saved us from dying. We took a deep breath, walked back to our seats, and sat quietly for the rest of the ride. About half an hour later, we saw a large object in the distance the size of a small planet. It was triangular and had multiple appendages on each side, almost like creeks branching off a river. Whoa! What's that over there? Asked Labe.
That there is the mothership, Labe. Its name is Oku, and the home to the Aji dynasty.
Who now? What's the Aji dynasty?
I'll answer any questions you have once we're on the ship and you're all settled in.
Labe and I couldn't believe what we were seeing. Never in our lives have we seen a ship that big. All we ever had were small pods built for 1 to 4 people. Jabu radioed into the ship to inform them about our approach. We saw a massive door open to allow our ship inside to land in the hangar. As we were landing, I noticed a large group of people wearing armor surrounding the landing area of our ship. Once our ship landed in the hangar, a small platform retracted from the floor and a beam of light emitted down to the floor. Jabu got up out of his seat and walked towards the opening of the ship.
After you, boys,
said Jabu as he gestured us towards the opening. Labe and I walked towards the opening and looked down. I'll go first, Kay, said Labe. Labe took no time to think about his decision and leaped down from the ship. I watched him slowly descend from the ship, and once his feet touched the floor, I saw him walk away from the beam. It was my turn to go down from the ship. I leaped down from the ship and descended from the beam. I placed both feet down on the floor and walked out of the beam into the hangar. All eyes were on me. I've never felt such unease in my life. Every single person in there was staring at me, and not one paid any attention to Labe. I couldn't believe all the different kinds of people there were. It was like every race from the universe was on this ship. That suddenly changed when Jabu exited the ship. The entire crowd of people got down on one knee and greeted Jabu. Labe and I looked at each other in shock. This Jabu guy is the leader of all these people? He leads the Aji dynasty? I thought to myself. After the people greeted Jabu, they separated to create a large pathway in unison, and walking down the pathway was a little girl. She was just a little shorter than me, as the top of her head was about at the height of my throat. Her hair was about down to the midsection of her back, and she was wearing a purple gown. Her face resembled that of Jabu's. I couldn't get over how beautiful she looked. She approached Jabu and bowed. Welcome home, father. How did the mission go? The girl asked.
It could have been better, to say the least. Boys, this is my daughter, Vika. Say hello, Vika.
Oh, my apologies, father. Hello, my name is Vika. Hi, Vika. My name is Labe. I couldn't utter a single word. I was mesmerized by her. Labe nudged me to get some sort of response out. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Kitamura, but everyone calls me Kay. Kitamura, huh? That's a cool name, Vika said with a smile. Hopefully, she didn't notice me staring at her.
Don't speak to them so casually, Vika. Treat them as if they were extensions of me, demanded Jabu.
Vika looked down at the floor with sadness and replied, You are right, father. I am sorry.
My followers of the Aji dynasty, this is Kitamura and Labe. I expect you all to treat them as extensions of me. They will be placed under my wing and trained.
Suddenly, everything went mute. I felt a dark energy, but from where, I don't know. A deep ambience filled my head, and then there was a voice. Come to me, said the voice in a deep, menacing tone. The room turned black. I looked in every single direction to see if there was anything in sight, but nothing.
Right here,
said the voice. I turned towards the sound of the voice to discover a large pair of yellow-orange eyes staring at what felt like deep into my soul. Who are you? And where am I? I frighteningly asked out loud.
Don't worry. We're only in your head. And who am I, you ask? I am the retribution you shall seek. The answer to all hate and pain you will experience in your life. Come find me on the ship, and I will tell you the truth.
I felt chills run down my spine. What was this voice talking about? Who is this thing? What truth? What truth are you talking about? I asked the voice out loud. As I asked the question, the yellow eyes slowly began to fade away, and I heard someone calling my name from a distance. It began getting louder and louder when suddenly I found myself back in the hangar in the same spot I was standing in before. Once again, everyone was staring at me. Kay! Screamed Labe into my ear. I screamed at the top of my lungs out of fear. Labe nearly jumped, scared me to death. What's going on? We've been screaming your name for the last 5 minutes, Kay, but you kept saying gibberish and we couldn't understand you. Vika's going to take us to our room now. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I must have just zoned out, that's all, I said nervously. I glanced up at Jabu, and there was a look of concern on his face. Oh well, let's get going, I guess, Vika said nervously, as Vika started leading the way down the path created by the people of the Aji. I put my head down in embarrassment and followed her. The walk to the dormitory wing was quiet. On our way there, I sensed the same dark energy emitting a few doors down from the one we were entering. It was all beat up and had dents in it. The first thing I noticed as I passed through the door into the dorm wing was the giant corridor that led into what appeared to be a giant recreational area at the end of it. We stopped about halfway down the hall when Vika unlocked a door on her left and gestured us in. This is where you two will be staying. Feel free to make yourself comfortable. Someone will be here soon to take you to my father's quarters. The room was tiny. All I had was 2 beds, 1 light on the ceiling, and 2 dressers. It was depressing. Labe and I walked in and chose what side we wanted. Hey Vika, on our way here, we passed a door that was all beat up. What's in there? I asked. Well, not many of us know. No one except my father and the higher-ups are allowed in the room. So it's locked using a bioscanner. There are rumors that an old weapon is stored in there, but it went rogue and almost wiped out the entire Aji dynasty, along with the planet they were on. Wow! Must be some crazy dangerous weapon, huh? Said Labe. Can I ask you another question, Vika? Sure. What is it? You seem to respect your father a lot. But what about your mother? Where is she? I can tell the question made her uncomfortable as she looked down at the floor. I wish to not talk about it. Please excuse me. I must go run some errands for my father. He should be here any time. Vika walked out of the room in a hurry and left the dorm wing. Labe and I just lay down on our beds and stared at the ceiling. I couldn't help but think about what happened to me earlier. Why me? Why is it in that room? Can it just break out of here? I need answers. I must find a way into that room. This sucks. It's boring in here, said Labe. Yeah, feels nothing like home, I replied. Hey, I have an idea. Why don't we play hide and seek? It'll give us a chance to check this place out. I don't know about that, Labe. We probably shouldn't leave the room until we see Jabu first. Oh, come on! Just one quick round. We'll be back in here in no time, exclaimed Labe. Now's my chance to go into that room, I thought to myself. I couldn't pass on an opportunity like this. I just need to make sure Labe wasn't around for when I do it. He might think I'm crazy if he sees me mumbling to myself again. I looked over at Labe and could tell he was starting to get a little impatient. So are we gonna play or not? Asked Labe. Yeah, I'll play. I wanted to be the seeker first, though. Are you sure, Kay? You will never want to be the seeker first. Well, I always shock you when I get scared. And I think it's a good idea to mix things up, too. Oh, okay. You're right. Now count to 30, so I have time to hide. Okay, sounds good to me. As I turned to the wall and counted, I heard Labe zoom out of the room. I counted to 30, left the dorm wing, and entered the hangar. I scanned the hangar area before approaching the door, and luckily no one was around. I quickly made my way to the door where I felt the dark energy and noticed a keypad kept the door locked. Nice going, Kitamura. Now what do I do? I thought to myself. I turned away from the door to make sure no one was around when I noticed a few crates near the door. I could probably hide behind those until someone either goes in or out of that door. I quickly and quietly made my way behind the crates and waited for the perfect opportunity to present itself. Not long after I hid behind the crates, 2 people walked out of the room, closed the door behind them, and locked it using the keypad. I couldn't see the symbols they typed in, but I could tell the general area where each key was inputted. As soon as I saw the 2 people enter the dorm wing, I made my way over to the keypad, typed in the combination, and a red light flashed. It was the wrong combination. I knew I wouldn't get it on the first try, so I continued to type in different combinations. None of the ones I typed in were right. My heart began to race, and I began to get very jittery, worried that I'd get caught. I heard the large gates opening to let a ship in. I hastily began typing in combos into the keyboard, just hoping one would work. I started breathing faster and faster each time I looked to see how much closer the ship was to landing. As a last move of desperation, I slammed my hand against the keypad, and a sudden burst of electricity shot out. The door had finally opened. My electric power must have made the keypad short circuit, which caused the door to open. I made my way into the room and closed the door. It was an almost empty room with one light in the middle of it, and what almost looked like a prison cell with red lasers running from the floor up to the ceiling. The dark energy was stronger than ever. It was coming from the cell. Hello? Is anyone in there? I asked loudly. You made it, said a voice from inside the cell. I immediately recognized the deep and menacing tone it spoke with. It was the strange set of eyes speaking to me inside my head earlier. I stared at the cell for a few moments, and that same set of yellow-orangish eyes peered at me. The booming sound of large footsteps echoed throughout the room as the eyes got closer and closer to the light being emitted from the laser beams. I suddenly got the chills as I saw the strange set of eyes reveal itself. It was a gigantic kaiju, looked to be at least 50 to 60 meters tall from what I could estimate. It walked on 2 feet, had a blue color hue, large hands and claws, razor-sharp teeth, 2 horns on the top of its head, and armor attached to its body with spikes. You bear the resemblance to the legendary Haiwa of the Noburu race, the kaiju told me. What are you talking about? What are you? I asked. I am Kitamura, the ultimate life form created by the Aji dynasty. I took a couple steps back and tripped over myself. I couldn't believe something like this existed. A giant kaiju on a spaceship. And it was talking to me. My body started shaking out of fear. I tried to speak, but no words would come out of my mouth. Do not be afraid, child. I will not hurt you. How are you talking to me? Your mouth isn't even moving, I hesitantly asked. One of my many abilities I possess is the ability to communicate with others telepathically. Okay, I think I should leave now. I think my friend is looking for me, I said in a nervous tone. I began to walk towards the door when suddenly Kitamura asked me a question that had been on my mind for my whole life. Don't you want to know who you are? I stopped dead in my tracks. I've always told myself that I didn't know who I was. I didn't look like anyone else on Koru. Everyone on Koru and the mothership gave me strange looks, and I never knew why. I turned around and made my way back to the cell. What is your name, child, and where are you from? Kitamura asked. My name is Kitamura from planet Koru, but everyone calls me K for short. Okay, Kitamura, before I tell you who you are, I want you to forget that silly nickname. Take pride in the name given to you by your ancestors. But my best friend Labe calls me that, I replied. Then leave, Kitamura! Continue to not know your true identity. I hesitated for a second and replied, Okay, I will only be called by my real name from now on. Can you please tell me who I am now? As I said earlier, you share a striking resemblance to the Heiwa. He was a part of the Noburu race. Well, what is the Noburu race? And who is that Heiwa guy? The Noburu race was a nomadic one that resided on the peaceful planet Anzen. Their role as a race was to perform simple protective contract work for other planets. They had the ultimate defense, known as the Denkai. When the body felt danger or fear, the power would activate autonomously. I looked down at my hands after Kutajira said that. So this is the power I've had my whole life? The Denkai? Kutajira continued the talk. With proper and intense training, one could use the Denkai as both an offensive and defensive power and utilize it to its full potential. Only one was able to utilize the Denkai to its full potential, and that was Heiwa. He would spend his early years on war-ridden planets and was forced to adapt to its environment. Throughout his years in battle, he would find a way to make the Denkai an offensive ability while maintaining the defensive properties of it. This would make him one of the most powerful warriors in the universe. However, he did not have the killer instinct or bloodlust that the others around him possessed. He would then decide to form a union and try to save the others from doomed planets throughout the galaxy. You, Kitamura, could unlock the full potential that Heiwa once had. Wow, I never thought I could be capable of such a power, I thought to myself. This Heiwa guy, is he still alive? I asked Kutajira. I'm afraid he and his legacy are no longer, he replied. Suddenly, I heard the door open. I turn around and see Jabu standing menacingly at the entrance.
Kay, why are you in here? Only my subordinates and I are allowed in this room,
Jabu screamed. I'm sorry, Mr. Jabu, I replied with fear.
Sorry will not cut it. Come with me at once.
Yes, sir. As I was exiting the room, Kutajira spoke one last thing to me. Come back to me when you wish to seek more truths. When I walked out of the room, we were greeted by two tall armed guards.
To the throne room, commanded Jabu.
His tone has changed a lot since we first got here. It's much more menacing and hostile. Jabu began to lead the way to the throne room, with me in between the guards following. Sweat started running down my face. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. How much trouble was I in? Was I going to be punished? Or would he just kill me on the spot?
How did you get in the room? There's a code to get in, and very few know it, including me.
I just sort of shocked it, sir. I guess these weird electric powers when I get scared, I explained to him.
Who were you talking to in there? Asked Jabu.
I was talking to the kaiju in there. Kutajira is his name. Jabu immediately stopped, looked down on me, and said,
What do you mean you are talking to it? That thing can't talk.
Yes, he does. How else would I know his name? I responded nervously. Once Jabu heard my response, he got a very concerned look on his face. He then turned around and proceeded to the throne room. No one spoke a single word the rest of the way. As we approached a set of double doors, I noticed someone sitting on the ground next to them. It was Labe. I was relieved that he was there too. Once we reached the doors, I noticed something different about him. He didn't say hi or anything. The whole right side of his face was swollen, and he had a black eye.
Both of you come with me,
ordered Jabu. Labe stood up and walked over right by me. We both entered the throne room. There were giant white pillars going from the floor to the high ceilings. In the center of the empty room was a silver throne with 3 guards on each side. All over the walls were portraits of Jabu, and even one with him and Vika when she was younger. Jabu approached the throne and sat down and stared at us with contempt.
Why were you two wandering the ship without my permission?
Jabu asked. Labe remained silent. We were just playing hide and seek, sir. Nothing more than that. Labe shook his head in agreement. I do not have time to lecture you two, so from now on, neither of you are permitted to leave the dorm wing of the ship. Understand? Yes, I understand, sir, I replied. And you, Labe, you understand now, correct? Yes, I do, Jabu, Labe replied in a monotone voice. Labe turned his head and stared at me with an expressionless look on his face. Something must have happened to him, and it had to be Jabu's doing. Now, Kay, you asked me earlier what the Aji dynasty is, right? Asked Jabu. Yes, I did. Could you just call me Kitamura from now on? Why? I thought everyone called you Kay. They do, but I like my full name better. Well, I suppose if you want that, then so be it, Jabu replied with indifference. The Aji dynasty is a large group of individuals that share one thing in common. Everyone here was saved from a planet destined for destruction. We all treat each other like a family. What we do here is help those individuals on planets that are on the brink of destruction, whether it be from a planetary disaster or an outside natural force. Some individuals refuse our help, disregard our advice, and suffer a miserable end to their race. Your home, planet Koru, was a victim to an outside natural force, causing it to implode on itself. By the time my forces have arrived, it was too late. Every major populated area of the planet had already been sucked in by the core. There was little hope of finding any survivors, but I insisted that I search alone. Lo and behold, I stumble on you two on that cliff. So you guys help save people from doomed planets and give them a new home and family? I asked. Precisely, yes. We create bonds that some people may never have had in their lives before joining, Jabu replied. I was going to brief you two on what you will be doing with us from here on out, but due to unforeseen circumstances, we will have to postpone that for tomorrow. The guards looked at each other in confusion. I turned to Labe in confusion as well, but he continued to look straight ahead with his expressionless face. I need to find out what's going on with him. Guards, escort the boys back to their room. I want you to stand outside their doors as well to make sure they don't go anywhere, commanded Jabu in a stern tone. They bowed to him and replied, Yes, Lord Jabu. The two guards walked up to Labe and me and motioned us to the door. Once again, the trip to our room in the dorm ring was silent. After we got back to our room, the guards informed us that we couldn't leave our room. If we needed to use the bathroom, one would escort us there and back. The lights in the room must have had an automatic timer because the room almost turned pitch black after us being in there for 5 minutes. I hopped into my bed and lay on my left side facing Labe. Once Labe got into his bed, he noticed that I was facing him, so he turned away. Labe, what's wrong? You've been acting strange ever since we got to the throne room earlier. Jabu told me that hide and seek is for little kids, and that we shouldn't be playing it anymore. I was shocked to hear that. It's not like we're adults or anything. We're just 10 years old, kid having fun. Oh, okay. Well, what about your face? What happened to it? I asked. I just ran into a wall. Listen, I'm tired, Kay. Let's just go to sleep, okay? Oh, I'm sorry about that, Labe. Hopefully you feel a little bit better tomorrow. Thank you. Good night, Kay. Oh, one more thing, Labe. Could you just call me Kitamura from now on? Yeah, sure, if that's what you want, replied Labe. Okay, thank you, Labe. Good night. After saying good night to Labe, I fell fast asleep. We heard a loud bang on our door the next morning. I got up out of bed and answered the door. It was Vika and both guards who stood outside of our room all night. Good morning, Kitamura. Good morning, Labe. My father wishes to see you both in the throne room at once. Ugh, can we just sleep a little longer? Asked Labe in a drowsy tone. He seemed somewhat like himself now, I thought to myself. I'm sorry, but it is an urgent matter. Please gather yourselves and follow me, said Vika. We tried to wake ourselves up by getting a good stretch in, then headed out the door. The two guards escorted the three of us to the throne room, where we met Jabu. He was sitting on his throne, waiting for our arrival. Labe and I approached the throne, but the guards stopped us about a meter away from it. Vika, on the other hand, walked over to the right side of the throne, next to her father. To the left of Jabu was a tall, black, slender figure. His eyes had no pupils, and he was wearing a full set of armor while holding a spear in his right hand.
This meeting will be short, as I have other matters that need my attention. Labe, starting today, you will be training under me. You will learn to be skillful leader and utilize your strengths to your advantages. As for Kei, you will be training under Commander Surai. He leads all squads on rescue missions. With that being said, you will be sent off of the mothership and accompany Surai and his squad for many years to come. You have incredible powers that has yet to be tapped into, and this will certainly help you achieve it.
Labe and I looked at each other in shock. Does this mean Labe and I won't be able to see each other? I asked Jabu.
Yes,
Jabu replied. My heart dropped to the bottom of my stomach. Labe has been right by my side from day one. Now that's being taken away from me too? First my family's taken away, then my home planet is destroyed. Now I'm not going to see my best friend for who knows how long? I looked over at Labe and saw his eyes began to tear up. We never expected something like this to happen. We've been through everything together.
Now that's been taken care of, I highly suggest you two say your goodbyes now. Labe is staying here with me, said Jabu.
I felt a rush of emotions come from the depths of my heart. I felt anger, depression, and sadness. Labe and I walked over and gave each other a big hug. Tears were streaming down our faces and onto our shoulders. Don't worry, Kitamura. I'm sure the time will go by fast, said Labe as he wiped his tears away. Yeah, you're probably right. You've always been right, I replied. I stuck my hand out for one last fist bump. You'll always be my best friend, Labe. Labe looked over at Jabu, then back at me. We'll see each other soon, he replied. Labe left my fist bump hanging there. Commander Surai walked over to me and introduced himself. Hello there, Kitamura. I am Commander Surai, and from this day forward, I will be your teacher. Hi, Commander Surai. It's nice to meet you. Well, we should get going. The day holds a lot for us still, said Surai. He motioned me towards the double doors. As Surai and I made our way to the exit the throne room, Jabu began to cough into a rag. Everyone else took notice of it. Father, are you okay? Vika asked warningly.
I'm fine, Vika. Just a small cough, that's all.
Jabu then handed her the rag he had coughed into. There was a small amount of blue blood on the rag. He doesn't seem okay if he's coughing up blood, thought to myself. We continued to make our way out the double doors. I took one last look at Labe and waved goodbye. He didn't wave back. This would be the last time I would see Labe and Vika for 8 years. I remember being in awe the first time I saw Oku. Its immense planetary size, and it's a triangular shape with multiple appendages on each side. The memory of meeting Vika for the first time made my heart jump up a couple beats. The unease I felt from all the soldiers staring at me after I exited Jabu's ship. All those moments were shared with my best friend Labe. After 8 long years, I'm finally going to see Vika and Labe. Although, it was very unusual for Jabu to call me and my team to report back to Oku. The mothership would contact us if there were any new missions. Nevertheless, I was excited to see how much Labe and Vika had changed since I left. My legs shook with excitement as we approached the hangar in Oku. Once the gates to the hangar opened, I saw a large group of soldiers standing near the landing area. Just like the first time I was here. My team and I successfully landed the ship in the hangar and began exiting it. As I exited the ship, the feeling of unease I felt from all the soldiers staring at me came rushing back to me. That feeling quickly vanished as something quite different happened. All the soldiers in the hangar greeted me the same as they greeted Jabu. They synchronously created a path for someone to walk down. That someone was Vika. My heart began to race as she made her way towards me. I tried to remain as calm as possible. She looked like a mature version of herself from 8 years ago. Sure, we kept in contact throughout those 8 years, but nothing could prepare me to see her again. We had built a strong relationship since I left. "Welcome back, Commander Kitamura," she said as she bowed. "You've certainly changed a lot. I remember when we were at eye level. Now I'm just as tall as your abdomen." "Well, it has been 8 years now, Vika. You haven't changed too much, I will say. And please, just call me Kitamura," I replied calm and cool. Vika and I began walking down the path created by the soldiers. No one was staring at me like how they were 8 years ago. I was taken aback by this. As I was looking at everyone around me and Vika noticed, she giggled a little bit. "What's wrong, Kitamura?" she asked. "No one is staring at me. It's so unusual. Last time I was here, everyone looked at me with contempt," I replied. "You know you are a commander of the Aji dynasty now. You earned that position and the respect that comes with it. So naturally, almost everyone is going to treat you with more gratitude than anyone else. Well, aside from my father, that is." "Right. How is your father doing anyway?" Rumors were going around that he was deathly ill. Vika's mood suddenly went from welcoming and friendly to shy and upset. She looked down at the floor as we were walking. "I'm afraid my father doesn't have much time left. The doctors say he only has about a year left before he passes." "Oh, I'm very sorry about that, Vika." Vika didn't respond to my comment. "Please, Kitamura, follow me to the throne room. My father wants to have a word with you." I didn't want to seem like I was interrogating her, so I stopped asking questions about her father. I could tell she didn't want to talk about it. As we were walking towards the throne room, the dark energy I felt 8 years ago struck me. It was Kutajira's energy. "You've changed quite a bit, Kitamura," said a voice inside my head. I suddenly stopped following Vika, and everything around me turned black. I turned around to find Kutajira standing about 5 meters away from me. "How was your trip away from Oku?" asked Kutajira. "We flew around the galaxy and saved people from their doomed planets. That's it," I replied.
Putting it bluntly, I see.
Kutajira let out a menacing giggle.
"Is that what you call it? Saving people from doomed planets?"
"What do you mean by that? That's the Aji dynasty's goal after all. Jabu and everyone has been doing this for a little under 2 decades now," I replied.
"Let me ask you this, Kitamura. Do you think it's odd that people defend their planet if its inevitable doom is approaching?"
I stood in silence for a few moments, contemplating the question he asked me. I never put much thought into it. Almost every planet would resist us rescuing them. They would put up some sort of fight. Kutajira now had my curiosity. "Tell me, what is the Aji dynasty exactly doing then?" I asked.
"I'll let you find that out for yourself,"
he replied. "Fine, but answer me this. What is your obsession with me? I remember 8 years ago, the day we met, I told Jabu that I was able to communicate with you. He initially denied that you could do such a thing, then got a worried look on his face that I told him your name. It's obvious that I am the only one you communicate with. Kutajira let out a menacing laugh after I had asked him that question. He then stared right at me.
Let's just say you and I are relatives.
He then clenched his fist, sending an electric pulse from his hand up to his arm. I was taken aback by what he did. There was no doubt in my mind that Kutajira possessed the Denkai, the power exclusive to the Noburu race, such as myself and Haiwa.
What the hell are you? I yelled to Kutajira.
I am the culmination of DNA from the most powerful species in the galaxy. And you know what?
Kutajira then came face to face with me.
I have the DNA of Haiwa. I am Kutajira, the ultimate life form.
I stopped breathing for a moment. I was in utter shock after hearing that. I couldn't move and no words would come out of my mouth. It felt as if I was in a disassociated state. I had so many more questions. What is the Aji dynasty? How does Kutajira have the DNA of Heiwa? Finally, I snapped out of my disassociated state and realized I was back in the hangar with Vika, standing in front of me with a concerned look on her face. Are you okay, Kitamura? You just sort of froze and didn't respond to me for a moment. Yeah, I'm okay, Vika. Something just came across my mind, that's all. I'm sorry if I scared you. It's fine. Let's just keep going, said Vika nervously. She had her head down the rest of the walk to the throne room. I would never want to scare or hurt her. Never have I felt this much embarrassment and shame in my life. We approached the double doors of the throne room and entered through them. The first two things I noticed as the doors opened were a bedridden Jabu and a person standing before him who looked oddly familiar to me. This person was about shoulder height to me. He was wearing a black sleeveless training top with a pair of black training pants and white shoes, wielding a black staff about as tall as him, and had a decent amount of toned muscle. As we got closer and closer, I realized why this person seemed familiar to me. It was his light red skin. There was no doubt in my mind that it was Labe. No one I've ever met looked even remotely like him. He changed so much since I left that I sped past Vika to greet him. Hey, Labe! It's been a while, and let me just say that you've changed a lot, I exclaimed to Labe as I extended my fist out for a fist bump. Labe looked up at me with contempt and said, You too. He left my fist bump hanging. I felt hurt and angry after what he did. This was the first time in 8 years that we had seen each other, and he looked at me like I was beneath him and made a 2-word remark. There was a moment of intensity as we stared at each other. He knew what he had done with no regrets. This was not my best friend from 8 years ago. Labe would have never put me down like that. Jabu cleared his throat loudly to remind us of his presence and dissipated the tension between Labe and me. I turned to face Jabu. He also had changed a lot for worse. He was no longer the Herculean figure that saved me and Labe from Koru years ago. What was once muscle is now just skin and bones. He was a gaunt, sickly figure that looked like he could die any day now.
As you both now may know, I'm cursed with a terminal illness. The doctors told me I have only a year to live at most.
Jabu let out a few wheezing coughs before he continued to talk.
There have been questions surrounding the fate of the Aji dynasty after my death. I've decided to pass the throne down to one of the two of you. I know you two may be thinking, why I not leave it to my daughter Vika? She does not have the teachings I passed down to Labe, nor the field and leadership experience you have, Kay.
After Jabu had said that, I got a feeling that I was being watched. I turned to my right and saw Labe staring at me with such intensity that it gave me the chills. Why was Labe acting like this? I thought to myself. How will the new leader be decided, Jabu? Asked Labe.
Tomorrow,
Both of you will engage in fatal combat with me as the audience.
My heart dropped. Fatal combat against my best friend? Sure, I was angry with him. That doesn't mean I would want to kill him. I looked over at Labe to see his reaction to the question he asked. His fists and jaw were clenched. I could tell he was either angry at someone or something. He took a glance at me, but then I shifted my focus back onto Jabu.
You two are not to converse or interact at any time before the exam. If I find out that either happens, I will kill both of you and Vika.
I felt anxiety and anger flow through my body. I clenched my fists and electricity began to emit from them. I began walking towards Jabu. He had no fear in his eyes. Why? Why bring Vika into I suddenly felt a strong blunt force strike me in my abdomen, causing extreme pain. I looked down to find that Labe had struck me with his fist. He moved out of the way as I fell to the ground. Shouldn't my Denkai have protected me from such a strike? I looked up at Labe as he was standing over me. Once again, he had the look of no regrets for his action. Vika quickly came to my aid and helped me get back onto my feet. I saw tears streaming down her face. It seemed she was in as much disbelief as I was.
She's my insurance to make sure you both abide by those two simple rules,
said Jabu.
Until it is time for the exam, both of you are to stay on opposite ends of the dorm wing with guards standing outside of your rooms. Neither of you will leave your rooms under any circumstances. Do you both understand?
Yes, Jabu, answered Labe. I hesitantly shook my head in agreement. Jabu motioned Vika to retrieve guards to escort us back to our assigned rooms. The room was completely silent the entire time. Vika has gone. I couldn't help but think about what would happen tomorrow. My best friend and I are pitted against one another in a fight to the death. I don't think I can do it. The memories of everything we both have been through crossed my mind. I looked over at him, and a wave of sadness rushed over me. Part of me knew that this current Labe wasn't the same person he was 8 years ago, but he will always be my best friend, and I would never turn my back on him, as Labe in the past never did such a thing. I heard the double doors open behind me and saw Vika with 2 guards on both sides. Kitamura, please follow the 2 guards on the right to your assigned room. Labe, please wait here until I am informed Kitamura has made it to his room, said Vika. I agreed to what she had ordered me to do and followed the 2 guards back to my assigned room. I walked into my room, immediately laid down on my bed, and started to cry. I was overcome with so many emotions and anxiety. I didn't want to die. I didn't want Vika to die. Most importantly, I didn't want to kill Labe. The lights in my room turned off, but I was too restless. Everything about tomorrow kept racing through my head. I stayed up all night thinking about it. I eventually became so anxious that I began pacing back and forth in my room. My door slid open, and I saw Vika with her eyes filled with tears. That's how I knew it was time. I shall take you to the combat wing of the ship, said Vika. I nodded in agreement and followed her and the 2 guards to the combat wing of the ship. I tried to focus as much as possible on the exam, but I couldn't block out Vika's emotions. Tears began streaming down her face, and she sniffed every 5 seconds. How could Jabu put her in such a position like this? We left the dorm wing, made our way across the hangar, and approached the entrance to the combat wing. My heart began to race. I started to sweat profusely, and I couldn't stop pacing back and forth in front of the entrance. Finally, the moment has come. The door opened, and through the door was Labe, holding his staff in the middle of the room with one light shining down on him. I walked into the center of the combat wing and heard the door shut behind me. Labe and I locked eyes. There was a feeling of violence and hatred in the room. With each second that had gone by, these feelings intensified. It eventually made me feel uncomfortable, yet Labe was unfazed. He looked as if he was mentally prepared for this very moment.
I was the first to break eye contact with him and decide to look around the room. On the left wall of the room, near the ceiling, there was a tinted window. I assumed that's where Jabu would be watching the exam. Aside from the window, there was nothing else in there besides me, Labe, and four walls. I looked back at Labe to find out he didn't break eye contact with me once. "We're not going to do this, Labe, are we?" I asked. Labe let out an evil giggle and said, "Of course we are. You, Kitamura, are the only thing standing in the way of my goal to become the leader of the Aji dynasty. Listen, Labe, I don't know what happened to you in the last 8 years, but we don't need to fight to see who's going to be the leader. You can just have it, okay? Your physique may have changed, but you're still the same little K I always had to lug around when we were young. Always so scared and full of self-pity. It's repugnant how long I stuck around you." "Labe, we're best friends, though." Suddenly, the sound of an intercom system interrupted our conversation. "And now, let the exam begin," said the voice on the intercom. Labe immediately made use of his speed, made a beeline straight towards me, jumped up in the air, and swung his staff straight down towards my head. I barely had time to react and blocked his staff with my forearm. Labe quickly retreated to a safe distance and once again came straight at me and unleashed a plethora of combos. I blocked each strike he threw at me, but there was no way he was going to back off me now. He had total control of the tempo of the battle. I had to do something fast, and before I slipped up and he landed a potentially fatal blow. Labe swiped his staff towards the left side of my head, but I ducked below it, extended my arms, and released an electric field to send him flying backwards. Somehow, he managed to land on his feet. "Not only did you manage to get a lot faster, but you also figured out how to use the Denkai. I didn't think you were capable of such feats," said Labe. "Please, Labe, let's stop this. I don't want to die, and I don't want you to die," I said. Tears began to run down my face as I told Labe that. "Ugh, open your eyes, Kitamura," yelled Labe. "In this hellscape of a galaxy, you're the one who suffers or the one who causes the suffering. Our friendship did nothing but hold me back from my true potential and cause me suffering. All you ever talked about was how poorly everyone treated you and how much you missed your parents and Koru. In turn, your suffering was mine as well. That is why I chose to sever our bond. Breaking our friendship was a necessity for me. No longer will I suffer from sadness, pain, or sorrow due to our meaningless bond. You will suffer for the rest of your life if you decide to keep the bonds you have. Break those bonds, Kitamura. Free yourself from eternal suffering." Who have you become, Labe?" Within a blink of an eye, I felt a huge strike land on the right side of my face, sending me into the wall. Once I looked up, Labe was in my face, landed a punch right into my stomach, and spoke to me. "I am the person I was destined to be." I used the same electric field technique to try and create separation, but he managed to get to a safe distance and zoom in to land a few devastating strikes. I coughed up blood and knelt on the floor. The Denkai was moving so fast that the power couldn't even recognize him as a threat. I had to find a way to contain him or else I was going to die. Labe walked over towards me, picked me up, threw me against the wall, and choked me with his staff. There was a slight red aura around his body. "This is the power of breaking bonds, Kitamura! The peak that everyone dreams of climbing to," screamed Labe. He then impaled my right shoulder with his staff, pinning me to the wall. I was defenseless. He struck me with an array of super-fast punches. More and more force was applied to each punch he threw. Labe not only wanted to kill me, but he wanted me to suffer, just as much as he did when we were friends. I started to cough more blood up as he continued to hit me with everything he had. At this point, I had accepted my fate. I was going to die here at the hands of someone who I thought was my best friend. Suddenly, the punches stopped. Labe was down on one knee, gasping for air. He must be tired from using the power he used just moments ago. Now was my chance to go on the offensive. I pulled his stuff out of my shoulder and waited for his next move. Labe slowly got up and charged at me. I swung the staff and slammed him into the wall. Labe let out a cry of pain as there was now a giant indent in the wall. I placed all my weight on him using the staff and let out a barrage of powerful knees and kicks into his lower abdominal area and legs in hopes of slowly him down. With each hit that landed, a scream of pain followed. I landed a headbutt on one of Labe's eyes, and he let out an ear-piercing yelp. Blood and saliva came out of his mouth and landed on me. I won't break my bonds with anything or anyone. Not even ours, I told Labe while gasping for air. You, Vika, and everything else in my life are the reason behind who I am today. I let my weight off the staff, causing Labe to collapse on the floor, gasping for air. I took 2 steps back and looked down at him. He didn't make any eye contact with me. I still refuse to kill you, Labe, no matter the reason, I said. I threw the staff across the room and began to walk to the opposite wall. After making it halfway there, I heard Labe sprinting towards me. I turned around, blocked his punch, and returned one to him. Labe caught my punch and said, "Look how overconfident you are. First you think you have any chance of killing me, and then you turn your back on me. I will be the one who ends you." Labe and I continued to fight it out, going blow after blow with each other. Splatters of blood covered the floor around us. It became a battle of will. The will to live longer. Labe successfully hit me with a combo that sent me down on the floor. My vision began to get blurry. I saw Labe walk over to receive his staff. I tried my best to get onto my feet to prepare to defend myself, but I could only manage to get on both of my knees. Little did I know, Labe was watching me struggle the entire time. He picked my head up with his staff and held it there for a moment. I felt a couple of drops land on my face of what I could only assume to be his blood, as my vision was going in and out. "Don't worry, you'll be with your parents soon, Kitamura. Tell them I said hi," Labe said. I could tell there was some hesitation in his voice when he said that. A sudden feeling of rage went through my body right as he said that. He spoke disrespectfully of my family, who has only ever treated him as if he were a part of it too. As Labe wound up to swing the staff, I screamed "No!" at the top of my lungs and extended my arms. An electric field with spikes burst out and impaled Labe. I looked at him in horror as he stared back at me and coughed blood onto my head. I lowered my arms and watched Labe fall to the ground. The last moments of Labe's life had arrived. I crawled my way over to him and stuck by his side. The horrifying image of Labe just barely clinging to life is something that will be engraved in my mind for the rest of my life. His shallow breathing, the holes where spikes had impaled him, and his bloody and bruised body were the most petrifying things I have ever seen. As I looked down at him, Labe turned his head to look at me. "Okay," he said to me. "What is it, Labe?" I asked. I noticed he had lifted his arm and his hand was balled up into a fist. I looked at his face and he had a big smile. He wanted a fist bump. "This is it, best friend?" Labe said to me. I lowered my arm, curled my hand into a ball, and bumped fists with him. Labe then lowered his arm and exhaled his last breath. I lowered my head towards him and began to cry uncontrollably. Labe, whom I have known my whole life, who I once thought was my best friend, is now gone. I sat up and noticed I was in a puddle of blood. It was from the shoulder wound I had received earlier. My vision began super blurry, and I passed out on the floor. Slowly, I started regaining consciousness. My vision was coming back, and I noticed there was a bright light shining down on me. As I sat up to get a look at my surroundings, I felt an intense, sharp pain run down my right arm, causing me to scream in pain. I got a glance at my surroundings to find that I was in my assigned room. It had the same layout as the one Labe and I shared 8 years ago. One bed on each side with a single light on the ceiling. Images of my battle with Labe in his final moments ran through my mind. As I sat on my bed, I found myself becoming angrier and more upset as I continued to think about it. Suddenly, the sound of a door opening permeated the room. It was Vika rushing to aid me. "Are you okay, Kitamura?" asked Vika worryingly. "I'm fine," I replied. "Really? Are you sure? I could get you some media." "I said I'm fine, Vika," I said to her in a stern tone. Vika was taken aback by my response, as she had a surprised look on her face. She quickly left the room and let out a little cry of sadness. I knew that I had messed up. "Vika, wait! I'm sorry!" I yelled to her. She continued to make her way out of the room, ignoring my apology. I made her upset, something I never wanted to do. I was so overwhelmed with my emotions that I didn't consider even hers. Why me? I asked myself. My left fist clenched. I slammed it onto my bed, causing it to break and send me to the floor. I let out another cry of pain, but this time, Vika would not come to help me. There I was, lying helplessly on the floor, with nothing but my emotions. I couldn't help but cry. I lay on the floor for hours just thinking about all the events that had just happened. Finally, I found the strength to get onto my feet and lay down on the other bed. Suddenly, a guard with a full plate of food walked into my room, set it down next to me on the bed, and left without saying a single word. I stared at the food for a few moments, picked it up, and set it on the floor. I didn't have any sort of appetite, as my emotions were still running wild. Over the next few days, guards came in and out of the room to bring my meals for the day, only to find out I touched very little of them. All I did every day was stare at the ceiling and be alone with my thoughts and emotions. As I lay there, Vika walked through the door with scissors and a journal. Now is my chance to properly apologize to her. "I'm sorry about what I did a few days ago, Vika. I was overcome with emotions and just really needed to be left alone. Never would I purposely hurt you." Vika had no response. She walked over to me, placed the journal on my bed, and began cutting the bandages off my right shoulder. As I looked into her eyes, I noticed they started to tear up. I didn't say a single word to her. Once she finished taking the bandages off, she started walking towards the door and said, "Take it easy with your shoulder. It's not fully healed yet, and you could hurt it again." I couldn't let her walk out of the room with tears in her eyes. I quickly got up from the bed, walked over and hugged her. She let out all the sadness that she had cooped up for those few days. Seeing her let go of all her sadness brought me some relief at that moment. Something crossed my mind at that moment, and I needed an answer. As she broke away from the hug to exit my room, I stopped her. "Vika," I spoke. She looked over at me. "Your father, why did he risk your life for me and Labe to fight?" Vika then looked down at the ground and replied, "Because he treats me more like a thing than a person." My fists and jaw clenched in anger after hearing Vika say that. How could someone treat their child as if they were a thing? A personal possession? I tried my best to contain my anger so that I wouldn't take it out on Vika. I nodded to her, and she left the room. As I went to lie down on my bed, I noticed the journal that Vika brought with her was still there. I picked it up, sat down on my bed, and turned to the first page. I couldn't believe my eyes. The handwriting, it was Labe's. My heart rate picked up and I got very nervous. I was afraid of seeing something that he may have not wanted me to see. A decision needed to be made. Either I remember him as the person he was before he died, or I read his journal and find out what may have caused him to change. I chose the latter. In his very first entry, he talked about the day we played hide and seek on Oku. Labe's face didn't swell up because he ran into a wall. Jabu punched him in the face that day after he found him. He also talked to Labe about me, about how I was a distraction to him, how I'm the one holding him back from his true potential, how I was going to become a danger to the entire galaxy. Jabu told him to break our friendship, our lifelong bond. My heart sank to the bottom of my stomach. Someone controlling my best friend to break the friendship that we had for so long? A part of me didn't want to continue reading, but I felt that I was already in too deep. As I continued to read his journal, more and more horrible truths began to come to light. Labe spoke of how cruel Jabu and the Aji dynasty were. They didn't save planets at all. Instead, they were paid to wipe out any sort of life on a planet so that the consumer could use it for relocation or expansion for themselves. All the kids that are saved from the doomed planets are just used to expand the Aji dynasty forces. At that moment, I realized that I wasn't saving anything or anyone. I was slaughtering the innocent and kidnapping the children for Jabu and his forces. There was only one ray of light throughout the darkness of what is Labe's journal. Labe spoke of how much he missed me. On every other page, he would bring up a memory from our childhood, or how I would have liked a certain thing that he was doing at a certain time. I felt tears coming on as I continued to read. On the day Labe found out I was going to be back on Oku, he wrote about how excited he was and how he wished we could hang out all day and catch up. What held him back was Jabu, as he expected Labe to have broken any bond we had. I flipped to the next page, and at the very top it read, "Dear K." I looked at the date, and he wrote it. On the day of our battle, the day he died. I read the letter out loud to myself. "Dear K, from the day I met you in school, I knew that our friendship was going to be something special. I remember seeing you sitting at a table all alone on the first day. I thought to myself, why doesn't that kid have any friends? Maybe I'll be his first." I rushed up to you immediately, introduced myself, and stuck my fist out for a fist bump. You just sort of looked at me funny and bumped fists with me anyway. It was awkward at that moment, but it's pretty funny to me now. I made it a goal to become your first friend. With each day that passed, you slowly started to become more comfortable around me. Although you were still shy and non-confrontational, I knew that deep inside you were a person with a big heart who wanted to be the very best he could be. After being away from each other for 8 years, I'm glad to say that you've become that person. The way you talked and how you confronted Jabu after he brought up Vika was all the proof that I needed. I know a lot of people on Kuru treat you unfairly, so I tried my best to keep your spirits high and to protect you. Even to this day, this is still true. Jabu and the Aji dynasty are horrible and only promote violence in this galaxy. When I heard that the next leader would be either me or you, I knew it had to be UK. If there's anyone that could put a stop to everything they do, it would be you. I'm sorry for anything I did and will do in the future. Jabu has a close eye on me, and if I slip up, he'll kill us and Vika. As I am writing this letter, I have decided to sacrifice myself for UK. This will be the last time I can protect you. If you are reading this, K, know this. I will always be by your side even after my death. I've always seen you like my little brother. Now that you've grown up, I think my purpose in this life has been fulfilled. I love you, Kay. Thank you for being like a brother to me. Labe. Labe never broke our bond. He chose my life over his. he allowed himself to die by my hands. I remember him propping my head up with his staff. As he went for the final blow, the hesitation in his voice when he said that I would be with my parents soon. A couple of drops of what I thought was blood landed on my face. Everything is clear to me now. He was crying because he knew that his time was up. I dropped Labe's journal on the floor, stared at my hands, and began to hyperventilate. The blood of so many innocent people and my best friend are on my hands. I've caused pain and suffering to others without realizing it. The life I had been living for the last 8 years was a lie. Tears began rolling down my face and onto my hands. I couldn't bear the thought of what I had done, and it was all because of Jabu. He was the reason I killed and kidnapped so many. He was the reason my best friend was now dead. My home, Kuru, no longer exists because of him. I clenched my hands and stood up from my bed. My life is a living hell, I cried at the top of my lungs. I raised both hands in the air, causing an electric field with spikes to blow the walls with the door completely off. My only goal now was to avenge the death of Labe by killing Jabu. Alarms began to sound off as I left my room and started making my way to the dorm wing exit. The 2 guards with spears entered the wing and charged towards me. One of the guards threw their spear at me. I caught the spear in mid-air, used its momentum to spin myself around, and threw it back at the guard. The spear went clear through the guard's head, and he dropped dead. The other guard stood there in shock as he witnessed the gruesome scene. I used this to my advantage and punched a hole clear through his chest, instantly killing him. I threw his dead body off to the side and continued to make my way to the dorm wing exit. As I busted through the exit, I was met by 30 soldiers in the hangar, all with the intent to kill me. I scanned my surroundings, looking for the soldier standing closest to me. After I found my target, I charged at him, struck him through his chest, then threw his body into the crowd. I continued moving through the herd of soldiers, taking each of their lives one by one. Not a single soldier laid a finger on me. The remaining soldiers began to frantically run away out of fear. They must pay for the suffering they have caused, I said under my breath. I opened my right hand and slammed it on the floor, causing huge black spikes with a purple electric aura to impale the remaining 7 soldiers. I looked down at my hand and thought, this must be the true potential of the Denkai. The hangar was flooded with the dead bodies of the soldiers who stood in my way. I stood in the middle of the hangar, covered in their blood. I did all of this with no feeling of sympathy. From the hangar, I made my way to the entrance of the throne room. As I walked through the set of double doors, I saw Jabu sitting on his throne as he expected me to come. I walked up to his throne, grabbed him by the throat, and threw him against the far side wall. Slowly, I made my way to him. You tried to brainwash my best friend. As I said, I picked him up, and his legs slammed on the floor. You treated your daughter as a thing, and used her however you pleased, even if that meant taking her life. I flipped him onto his stomach and pulled both arms behind his back until I heard them pop. Jabu screamed in agony, but did not utter a single word to me. You are the sole reason my best friend and thousands of others are dead. Your mere existence disgusts me. I will make sure you suffer as much as every person you have killed, even as much as Labe, I told him. I then picked him up by his throat and stared into his eyes. Jabu let out a short and quiet laugh. My life was coming to an end soon anyway. My suffering was only physical. It was temporary. Your suffering will be eternal. The blood of innocent people you shed will be stained on your hands for eternity, Jabu told me. He then began to laugh menacingly. The sound of his menacing laugh disgusted me. The reality of death did not matter to him. I had enough of Jabu. I squeezed his neck until an echo of it cracking could be heard in the room. Jabu was now lifeless in my hands. I threw his body up in the air, stuck my right arm out, and struck it with lightning bolts, causing it to disintegrate. A sudden realization then crossed my mind. With Jabu now dead, I became the new leader of the Aji dynasty. I suddenly heard the double doors open and prepared to attack, only to find out it was Vika. She had a look of panic on her face, as I suppose she saw the gruesome scene I left in the hangar. "Where is my father?" she asked. "Jabu, leader of the Aji dynasty, is no longer," I replied. Vika froze in place, and her eyes began to water. Something was different this time, though. She wasn't weeping, nor did she put her head down and walk away. Instead, she had a small smile on her face. Vika walked over and gave me a big hug. It was as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "Thank you," whispered Vika. I didn't reply. Something didn't feel right. I had killed Jabu to avenge Labe, thousands of other people in Koru. I was not satisfied with my doing. I desired much more. Everyone who was part of the Aji dynasty had lost their homes to a capital-seeking tyrant. The retribution of mine goes far beyond me now. I wanted a new permanent home for everyone on board, including myself and Vika, no matter the cost. All who seek refuge from this hell would be allowed to live on this new planet of ours. Most importantly, I want the planet to resemble Koru. This would be time-consuming, as it could take years to find the perfect planet, not to mention the case if a planet were to rebel and create war. I need to speed up the process vigorously, but to do that, I was going to need some help. I carefully pulled Vika off me and moved her aside, and began walking out of the throne room. "Where are you going, Kitamura?" she asked. "Meet me by the entrance to the dorm wing in 15 minutes, I replied as I continued to the exit room. I walked out of the throne room, made my way through the hangar while stepping over the corpse of troops, and then approached the batted door to the left of the dorm wing. With my hand clenched, I busted down the door and walked in. "What will Jabu do once he finds out you are in here?" asked Kutajira as he moved towards the front of his cell. "I killed him. I'm the new leader of the Aji dynasty now," I replied with a stern tone. Kutajira's eyes widened, and he let out a menacing laugh. "That pest Jabu deserved what he had coming for him, for what he did to me and Heiwa," said Kutajira. "What do you mean by that?" I asked him. "Heiwa was the first leader of the Aji dynasty, and his underling was Jabu. Heiwa did indeed help save people from doomed planets, but with the right intentions, unlike Jabu. He saw a potential business out of it in helping bigger and wealthier races expand or relocate to the planet of their choosing. Heiwa and Jabu butted heads for years to come, until one day, Jabu poisoned Heiwa, causing him to die in his sleep. I was then created from the DNA of Heiwa and other strong species in the galaxy to help lay waste to the planets. As my powers grew stronger with each battle, he locked me away in this cell out of fear that I would eventually become rogue." After I heard what Kutajira had told me, I started to let out a menacing giggle that eventually turned into a laugh. "How fitting that Jabu died at the hands of the last Noboru alive," I said in an intimidating tone. I looked around to find the device that turned off the laser beams that kept Kutajira in his cell. Along the right side of the wall, there was a big red button. I extended my right arm out and fired an electric beam at it. The laser beams turned off, and Kutajira immediately walked out of the cell. "Why did you do that?" asked Kutajira with confusion. "I need your help, Kutajira. We're going to take over a planet for ourselves, I reply. Kutajiro let out a frightening giggle and asked, when do we get started? I heard a scream coming from the hangar. Kitamura! Come out here quick, said the voice. I hastily walked out of the room to find Vika with her back against the wall, staring at a group of around 500 troops armed with weapons. I kept my cool and walked over to Vika to calm her down. Everything will be okay, I promise, I whispered to her. I walked over to a nearby elevated surface so I could have the attention of the troops. Jabu is now dead, I yelled. Everyone looked at each other in disbelief and confusion. A lot of you may or may not have known that we devastated planets and kidnapped the children so that they would eventually become loyal members of the dynasty. Some of you may have been one of the many children who were kidnapped, like me. Now that Jabu is dead, I have become the new leader of the dynasty. We, as a dynasty, will no longer commit such shameful and horrific acts. In turn of that, we are no longer the Aji dynasty. Our only goal is to find a planet of our own, to make it our home. Our planet will serve as a haven for refugees from doomed or war-ridden planets. We are now the Haisuki dynasty. There was a moment of silence after my speech to the troops. One troop went down on one knee as a sign of respect. This created a domino effect. Soon after, all 500 soldiers were on one knee. Behind me, Kutajiro ripped through the wall that separated his room from the hangar and let out a furious roar. This was not only the beginning of the Hasuki dynasty, but the beginning of the journey to achieving our goal.